today exemplify the value of a liberal arts education across generations. We hope that students tuning in will find inspiration and insights from their stories. So today's program is brought to you by UConn Stamford Political Science and Economics departments, by Center for Career Development, by Honors Program, and the UConn Foundation. So we thank all of those partners for this exciting opportunity. So our panel will last about an hour, including time for Q&A. Throughout the conversation, please feel free to submit any questions as we go to the chat, and make sure you put it to all panelists, not to everyone, put it to the panelists. And we will make sure we can answer as many questions as we can during the Q&A part. Okay. So now I'd like to start us off by giving a short introduction of each of our panelists. So Harriet Monrad-Wolf is the Executive Vice President, General Counsel, and Corporate Secretary for Webster Bank and Webster Financial Corporation. She has a bachelor's degree in political science from UConn Stamford and JD from Pepperdine University School of Law. Next, we have Maureen Henley, who is the Senior Vice President of the First Bank of Greenwich. Maureen has a bachelor's degree in political science from UConn Stamford. Then we have Anne Macaulay Lopez, who is the lead writer and owner of Macaulay Freelance Writing. She has a bachelor's degree in economics from UConn Stamford. Catherine Wallace is research coordinator at Columbia University Medical Center. She has a bachelor's degree from UConn in human development and family studies, and also has MSW from Fordham University. And we also have Brianna Wollstone, who is the founder of Brianna Regine Visionary Consulting, LLC. She has a bachelor's degree in communications from UConn Stamford. So welcome all the panelists. So we have prepared a couple of questions for our panelists. So we would like you ladies to answer them in 2 minutes time or shorter. And then after we have a couple of questions, we'll open it for Q&A from students. So the first question. How have your ideas about what you wanted to do in college changed and evolved over the course of your career journey? Let's start with Harriet.
Good morning. I'm a little bit different, I think, than many who started off heading towards college, because I knew exactly what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I knew at the age of 5 I wanted to be a lawyer. I did not necessarily know what area of practice, but I was only 5. So to me, it was sort of mapping out that career, and political science was just an area of interest. And certainly I took, history and economics, et cetera, at UConn. And to me, the liberal arts degree really gives you sort of a rounded education. And you can really do a lot with it. Now, to go to law school, it doesn't really require any particular undergraduate degree. You can really major in anything and head to law school. But for me, it was, that ability to write the persuasive argument, et cetera. And when I came out of law school, because I had clerked while I was in school as well, and I saw different practice areas, I knew I wanted to be a corporate lawyer. And I just sort of stumbled into banking. I knew nothing about banking and happened to meet at that time the head of People's Bank, who happened to be a lawyer. And so that was how I thought about, let me try banking. And so it's been a very long career. Really love what I do. And so I would say, one of the things in terms of your career journey is be open to opportunities. I mean, things may come along that you might not have thought of. I would have never thought of going into banking, and it just happened. So I'm a corporate lawyer, but for a financial holding company.
All right, thank you. Maureen? Oh, hold on, Maureen, we cannot hear you again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, sorry about that. My story's similar, but a little different. I as well wanted to be an attorney. That's what I wanted to be for 10 years before entering college. And what I would tell the people, the ladies listening in, is that life can throw you some curveballs, and it's all about how you deal with those curveballs. And life, my dad always said that man plans and God laughs. So when I graduated, it was the last worst recession that we had seen. And hopefully I can speak to the ladies on this call to tell them, don't be discouraged. This is a very difficult job market that you're coming into if you're graduating next year. But keep your chin up. And what I would say is don't look down at any opportunity. There were very few jobs out there when I graduated. I ended up going into the auto dealership for a couple of years in finance. And, then my little one was going to school, and I was like, wow, I can't work 70 hours a week anymore. So I took a 50% pay cut and went into banking at an entry-level position. And 26 years later, never a regret, never a look back. It has been a wonderful career. I encourage them to consider commercial banking. Very few women in my field. So consider commercial banking.
All right, thank you. Anne?
I always forget the unmute part. Sorry about that. When I was in college, I was an economics major, and I chose that major because I don't know, I didn't want to go to the business school. I'm not exactly sure, but I felt like it was kind of business adjacent. So I did that, but I also, to Harriet's point, got a really well-rounded liberal arts education. I ended up going into investing in venture capital, worked for a venture capitalist, ended up in a lot of numbers jobs because of my economics degree. Ultimately, though, in 2010, when I was laid off, I looked at what I liked about those jobs and said, I'm really good with data, but what I love to do is write. I love writing the reports. I love connecting people. I love networking in a very, very small way within the business. I was networking. And it was in 2010 that I started my business. And back then there were no jobs. It was the Great Recession. I'm out here in Arizona, so I think ours may have hit a little bit sooner than back east. And my friend said to me, what do you want to be when you grow up? What have you always wanted to do? And I said, I've always loved words. I remember if they said multiple choice or essay, I chose the essays through my entire scholastic career. So that's where it took a turn. A couple people took a chance on me and said, yeah, she's got the aptitude to be in marketing, and she's got writing skills, and really mentored me along the way. And it's been a wild ride the last 10 years, but I'm really excited that I made the choice. So I think to everyone's point, take those chances and really make the most of what you have, and really think about what skills you have that you can bring really to any job wherever you go.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Catherine?
Yeah, I think I'm going to echo a lot of what the women are saying on the panel. But yeah, I went into, my bachelor's thinking I was going to be helping people. That was sort of my idea. I wanted to work with people. And then I kind of thought I would go to graduate school for social work, but I wasn't 100% sure. But I graduated and I thought I got to go. I got to go to grad school now. It's now or never. So I went to graduate school. I started working in nonprofit with people, working kind of as a caseworker right before I graduated. And I thought this is what I'm going to do. And somehow along the way, I got offered this research position. And you would have never in a million years would have told me that I was going to be doing research and randomized controlled trials for a major educational university, but that's what I'm doing. And it's a different way of helping. I do still feel like I am helping, and I do get that contact with other people, and I feel like we made great strides in our research, and I feel like this is sort of, just a great curveball, right? I've been at Columbia for 4 years now, and I thought I'd be sort of doing clinical work or, sitting at a desk and doing, therapy. But this has been very different and just a great opportunity. And so definitely to be flexible and open and just, sort of be willing to take chances and make changes that are tough, because sometimes you're comfortable in where you are, but just take the risk.
Okay, thank you. And then Brianna.
Hi guys. So similarly about being flexible and being open, taking risks, that has been like a consistent mantra or like model, if you will, in my journey. Very similar to Harriet. Since 8th grade, I knew I wanted to be in entertainment. So I knew out the gate what I wanted to do. I just wasn't sure how I was going to do that. I thought I was going to be Beyonce. That was short-lived. I thought I was going to be a professional dancer. That too was short-lived, because they actually work really, 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 really hard. So I ended up putting myself in opportunities to help people. And that kind of manifested in being an independent researcher for a PR company, a marketing administrative assistant at a dance studio, and also being a dance teacher. I did retail for some time. I worked with a variety of different startup companies. I did corporate for a little bit. I did nonprofit organizations. And then my last job before I started my own company was at a PR agency. And all of these different jobs that I had involved doing what I do through my own company now. Brand development, digital marketing, PR, events, and definitely the operations side. And yeah, I guess I've always been guided by my desire to help others, to teach as well. It was actually entertainment or being a teacher. And while I'm not a traditional teacher today, I teach people how to brand their business and how to position their brands for longevity. And 4 years later since I started my business, I realized that my desire, like my perception of what I deem as successful, is continuing to evolve. And it echoes the fact that I need to take more risk and be open-minded to the many different ways that I can exist in this world during my lifetime. So now I'm in a space where I'm like, okay, I really want to scale my company. I want to continue helping as many brands as I can, but I also want to give back more to youth. I have a desire to be more involved with mentorship and just empowering youth, especially those that look like me, to use their voice and make a change. So that's how my journey started and how it is continuing to evolve.
All right, thank you. Wow, very good. A lot of good tips and hints from our panelists. So we are going to the next question. And the question is, as you pivoted, you all said that you had your curveballs and you bounced them back. As you pivoted in your career and entered more non-traditional roles, how have you sought out mentors to support your career and career transitions? So exactly, Brianna already saying she wants to be a mentor, but we want to know how you guys all, if you did have mentors. Okay, we'll start with Harriet.
I'm not sure that I necessarily had mentors or a mentor. I was going to school full time. I was working full time. There was sort of very little opportunity in between, but I believe I had mentors along the way that just recognized something in me. And so while I didn't necessarily seek out a mentor per se, I think it's sort of evolved, and I've stayed close to a number of people that I've encountered throughout my career. I do a lot of mentoring because I think it is so important. We recently had a panel discussion at Webster, and I was the moderator, and it was focused on mentorship. And so I would say, you know, there's different ways to go about it. Sometimes somebody will recognize an opportunity to assist you in your career or as you start to plot your career. And so just be open to that. If you're seeking a mentor, I would certainly say, you know, recognize who out there that you admire that maybe is in a field or you think could be helpful to you. And I always say to somebody, just, you know, ask them for 15 minutes of their time. You know, don't start by saying, oh, I'd like you to be my mentor. You know, that can be a real commitment if it's done properly. But I think you can establish a rapport in, you know, 15 minutes, go in with something specific that you want to talk about, an issue, a situation, you'd like some advice, you know, that sort of thing. And usually they, you know, it'll build from that. And what I also, one of the things that I learned, which I hadn't really thought of in the panel that we did at Webster, was one of the panelists had talked about having a board of mentors. So don't necessarily limit yourself to the notion of just one mentor, because there may be different people that can help guide you on different aspects. And so think of it more as a board of directors of mentors. And I always advise, you know, when I mentor somebody, and I probably have about at least 8 at the moment, and that's not unusual. I always say I require 2 things. One is you come prepared with an agenda. It's not a lecture hall. You know, you're not just sitting there listening to me. And then also promise to me that at some point in your career, you will have an opportunity to mentor somebody. And that's the give back. That's the carry forward. And so those are the requirements. And in terms of, you know, some advice for students who, as they set off on their career path, there were 2 comments that were made on the panel that I referenced. And one of the panelists said what she had learned was you can do whatever you want to do when you decide. And the other panelist had said, if you think you can, if you think you can't, you're right. So to me, it's being that open-minded as to opportunities, and then think of it in terms of as you go through your career, and you'll have stumbles, but that's where a mentor can really help in the guidance.
Okay, thank you. Harriet, Maureen? Okay, no, we cannot hear you.
Okay, there we go.
Okay.
I echo everything that Harriet just said. And I think I would only add as well, I was working full-time and going to school full-time, so there wasn't a lot of time for anything else. And my first mentor sought me out. And I was very blessed to have him mentor me for probably better than 15 years of my career before he retired. He had some interesting insights to mentoring and encouraged me to seek out another mentor that was active in the industry, which I did. I picked somebody that was in the role I wanted to achieve, and, you know, sought him out. He was very open to mentoring me. The other thing I would add for the students is you will encounter situations during your career where a crisis could occur. And I would encourage you to have mentors that are outside of your industry. My mentor had encouraged me to do that, and I have mentors that are authors, who are psychologists and national, international speakers, very strong-minded women that were able at certain times in my career to give me a very honest take on the situation and give me very good advice. So I would also encourage you to seek out mentors outside your industry. In addition, yes, you have an absolute responsibility to give back. As you mature in your fields and you achieve your goals, seek out those bright stars. I have one I'm working with very closely right now. I know she's going to do and achieve amazing things in her career. So remember to give back.
All right, thank you. Anne?
Thank you. I remember a mentor I had when I was in corporate America, and she was she was, she did her job really well. She wasn't in the middle of drama and things like that. And we had a lot of lovely conversations. I think it was then, though, that I realized that maybe corporate America wasn't quite right for me. So I learned from her, and I picked up some skills that I believe I've taken into the world of being my own business owner. As time has gone on, what I've done in terms of mentors is and it sounds like the other ladies have as well, is to find those strong women that I admire and sit down and talk to them, develop a relationship with them. Is it a true mentor-mentee relationship? I don't know. I learn from them and they learn from me. And it's made a huge difference. It makes me think that I can do this, in those days when you feel down and you're like, gosh, I don't know if this was a good idea to choose this career. They really pick me up because they've succeeded in their career and they can give advice in that way. The other thing I've done is that whenever someone reaches out and says, I want to be a writer, I want to be a freelance writer, I want to work with businesses, I always say yes. And it's probably about every quarter, a few times a year, I have those folks reach out, mostly young women, and say, how do you do it? Where did you start out? How did you learn how to do this? How did you decide? And I feel like I've mentored them. Either they're going to say, yes, I want to take the path, or maybe the answer is no, and they choose something else. But I think it's really important to give back and to share what we've learned. It's only going to make the world a better place.
All right, thank you. So, Catherine?
Yeah, I mean, I think I took a lot of my opportunities from just like relationships, like building relationships is so important, and staying connected. And one of my first mentors was my supervisor in graduate school. I had to do an internship, and I stayed connected with her, and she actually brought me into Columbia. So, you don't know who is going to be the integral part of your life. I think just staying connected and building those relationships is really important because they will come up whenever you least expect it and when you most need it. So I think that's sort of my big takeaway is anyone could be a mentor to you because we all have so many different, stories, perspectives, life experience that you can learn from. So I would say just don't stay in your niche. Like I could have a bunch of social work mentors, but that would not have helped me in other areas that they may not have known about. So I think just sort of really people are all different and everyone has a story. And I love sort of hearing those stories and learning from them. And I think that you stay open to that and just sort of take it all in. And when you least expect it, like I said, they will come up.
All right, thank you. And then Brianna.
Yes, I'm going to echo what Catherine said. Mentorship, I feel like the best way to go about seeking a mentor is to seek an relationship and have it build over time. I think the concept of mentorship or like having a mentor, at least I know for me growing up, the traditional definition of it is completely different than what I think it is now. I think it is being more open-minded to just the people that you interact with and are able to connect with over time. I will say I feel like I have at least one mentor in my life, and she has come onto my journey fairly recently. I've only really known her for about 2 or 3 years. And I was doing another panel. I met her at a conference in Connecticut, and she gravitated towards me. And we met through a mutual friend. And then our relationship has kind of just spiraled into this beautiful thing where I view her as a mentor. She views me as a mentee, a sister, a friend. Like, as long as you are reaching out and sharing your value to someone that you also see value in, and you're committed to having an organic relationship in that way, then the mentorship mentee role will evolve over time, and just have it be natural. Don't try too hard, don't do too much. And if anything, just be intentional about where you position yourself as you go along your career. If you want to be in certain spaces, okay, find opportunities for you to be in those spaces, but make those decisions from a place that is comfortable to you. And what I mean by that is don't sacrifice more than what you're willing to give. Stay true to yourself. You know in your gut when you're making a right decision and when you are doing something that aligns with your purpose. So have that be something that drives you, and what you put out there, you will attract. So be open-minded. Don't be afraid to ask for what you want as well. Just because someone may see your work ethic and may think that you are on a good path doesn't mean that they are going to take the leap to be like, if you want them to be your mentor, then put yourself out there. I always say closed mouths don't get fed. So if you want that guidance, ask for it.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you. And thank you all the panelists for your nice advice about mentorship. So this is our last prepared question. So I would like to also alert students, so you should be putting your questions in the chat for the next segment. But our last question is, in fact, about the current situation. So many of our students are thinking about life after UConn. What advice do you have for them as they think about marketing themselves and their liberal arts degrees in the midst of a pandemic and hardship for most industries? And I would like to start with Brianna this time, because she is the most recently graduated person amongst all our participants, and probably she has the freshest perspective on the labor market and the challenges of the current situation. So Brianna.
Do I, Natalia? No, I'm kidding.
Yes, I saw your bio.
I would honestly, the first thing that comes to mind is echoing what I said before. Closed mouths don't get fed. And I tell people the first brand that you will ever work for, that you potentially will ever represent, is yourself. So when you are applying for jobs, or even if you are pitching yourself to a company, make sure that your resume is together. You have a portfolio, or rather you have work and you want to put it on a portfolio, do that. There are tons of free sources that you can create a simple landing page to add additional context to what it is that you've done. Sign up for free courses to get certified in certain things, so that way it beefs up what you've already done. And do research. Like I keep saying, yes, I feel like there are a variety of different opportunities out there, as long as you're open-minded. And sometimes I'm a hypocrite because sometimes I don't take my own advice. I'm working on that. But if you are open-minded, there will be a lot more chances for you to take than what you see directly in front of you. So apply. Even if you're like, oh, I don't know if I have, the requirements for this position, the worst that can happen is that you don't get it. The best thing that can happen is that you get an interview. Okay, maybe you don't make it to the final stage, but now you have someone in your network that you can continue to grow the relationship with, and who knows what can happen in the future. So apply to everything, and don't be afraid to create your own opportunities as well. There's power in that. Be innovative when you do it too. Don't bypass the general info email. Go to the HR person. Figure out what their email address is. Create a video introduction of yourself. Like, there are so many different ways that you can stand out and grasp the opportunities that you create for yourself. So don't be afraid to do that. And for me, just to add a little bit of context, because I know part of that can sound like, oh, she makes it sound so easy. I know it's a challenge. For me, my last year of UConn, I was working at a PR agency. I was an intern on paper, 3 months in, and I was there for a year. They liked me. So I was doing account coordinator work, but I was also freelancing on the side. And it was December of my senior year where I had like this gut feeling of, you can do this yourself. You could probably do this and then some yourself. And I was fortunate to have parents that supported me. My mom, I talked it over with her, and she was like, okay, you have 1 year, see what happens in a year. And I'm here 4 years later. So everyone's circumstances are different, but as long as you create some sort of game plan to guide you, not be the end all be all, you will be okay. Find your tribe to support you along the way and create opportunities for yourself.
All right, thank you. Catherine?
Yeah, I think I'll echo sort of the theme of the meeting is sort of to be flexible and open and just don't pigeonhole yourself into one area. I think being prepared is really important, doing the research, never stop learning. So even though you've graduated, like Brianna said, just keep learning, taking courses, sort of opening yourself up to other areas, and just keep trying to find, the thing that makes it, work for you. But I know it's a tough time, but I think that we're changing a little bit in our, the sort of the atmosphere of what work and careers look like. And I think it's a great time for young people to be able to adapt, right, and quickly sort of the atmosphere of what it'll look like. So I think it's a great time to just be open to whatever comes their way, and just keep learning all the time.
All right, thank you. Anne?
Yes, I took notes from what the others said, and I think during a time like this, it's really about your personal branding, and that skills development, certifications, kind of taking all the things you've learned and kind of doing, I call it a brain dump all the things you've ever done and what do you like, and develop a skills type of resume of here's what I love doing, and maybe you'll be an event coordinator for a little while, and maybe you'll go into PR, you'll go to law school, whatever it is. Utilize LinkedIn, utilize networking events. I mean, this is a networking event. If you want to reach out to me, I'm absolutely open to it. I would love to talk to people and give some guidance. And I started my business during the last terrible recession, so there were no jobs, so we had to get creative. And yes, with your resume, just keeping it updated. I have my oldest stepson's a junior, and he updates his resume and his LinkedIn probably every couple of months, depending on what projects he's doing in school. So he likes service. So that's a big part of his resume. And it's very likely he'll end up in a nonprofit. I don't know. He's an HR major, so we'll see what happens. But I think all of what has been said really, really is about making connections and branding yourself.
Thank you. Maureen?
I echo everything that's been said so far, and I would stress that building your brand is really important. Use social media, especially in these times. And I would expand on that a little bit, especially given our audience. And I think it was said before, but I want to echo it. You don't have to have 90% of the requirements for the job. If you've got the core, then go for it. Reach in. I know lean in is a big one, but reach in for those opportunities. Raise your hand when there's a project that your boss puts on the table. Be the one to raise your hand and say, I'll take charge of this for you. And I would also add volunteer. Make that part of your branding. Give back to your community. By means of networking, there's nothing more tremendous than being part of a not-for-profit committee or a not-for-profit board, and it's been a very, very integral part of my career and my advancement. So I would encourage you to do that. And the last piece of advice I would give, especially given the generations, and my son is 22 and just graduated from college, is something that my father often said. Before you do something or before you say something, picture it on the front of the newspaper. And if you don't want that to happen, then let that be your guide.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Maureen. All right, and then we have Harriet.
I was chuckling when Maureen's last comment as to, in my family, it's always been live your life as though it's printed on the front page of the New York Times. And, is that going to be embarrassing to you and your family, or can you live with it? And I think that's when I came out of school. It was before internet, right? So it was the old fashioned. You went to the library to look things up. You pulled from other resources. So there wasn't the social media aspect, and I always advise people to be cautious as to what you do put out on social media, because it'll live out there forever. And nobody really wants to see you, in a compromising position, because if they're hiring, they're going to be doing background checks. And so you need to be cognizant of those things. Also, when you come out of college, unless you've been working along the way and in something that is connected to the field you wish to go into, or where there is some kind of a tie-in, your resume is pretty much going to be, printable on a postcard. So that's always an issue, because if it's a difficult job market, and while this is a pandemic, so clearly a little bit different, but I think all of us have lived through various economic up and downs. And so we've all had those kinds of challenges. So to me, it's make sure you can fill in gaps on your resume. If you're working and your position collapses, you don't want a gap on a resume. So think about areas where you have a passion. And it may not be in the field in which you're practicing. It may be, maybe you're handy and you want to help build, rehab houses for Habitat for Humanity, but something, so you don't have gaps. So it shows that you didn't just, sit home all day and watch, Netflix. So, make sure you get out there, because you never know what connections you will make. And it may not even be something that will benefit you at the moment, but it could down the road, and it could give you a reference. And always think of it in terms of whatever you do will be there to either support what you've done in your life and in your career, or it will be detrimental. So if you volunteer for something, show up, right? Put your effort in. Don't think of it as, well, just something I can add to my resume, and that's good enough. And certainly anything for a not-for-profit boards. If you've got digital skills, it may not be anything that you want to do in your career, but you have the skill, and you volunteer for a local group that perhaps doesn't have that skills within their current complement, and you'll show what you can do and your interaction, and that you're able to figure things out and come up with methods. And again, you never know where that will lead on your journey.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for sharing your insight thus far. So we are going now to transition to our student-led Q&A. And I'd like to invite my colleague, Dr. Beth Ginsberg from the Department of Political Science, to facilitate this conversation. Beth?
Hi, everyone. Hi, good morning, everyone. I hope you can all hear me. I just want to thank everybody for their panelists for their discussion thus far, and my colleague, Professor Smirnova, for leading the first part of the presentation. I also want to just remind the students, if they have questions, they can type it in the chat addressed to all panelists. And I see a couple of questions already there. I also want to apologize in advance if I mispronounce any of the students' names. That's not my intention. So we're going to start with the first question from Samaj, who writes, in regards to changing career paths, how do you discern a step forward from a step backward? So do any of our panelists want to tackle that question first? Or I'll just randomly call on somebody. Catherine, because I can see your face. Do you want to tackle that question?
Sure. And then I think Maureen had something to say, right?
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I would say, I mean, to me, nothing's a step backward, because even if you fail, let's say it totally tanks, like you get into this job and you hate it and you realize, oh my God, I've made a horrible decision. that's a learning experience, right? Right there. That tells you, okay, this is not something I want to do. So you've learned from that. And that's actually a step forward in the right direction, whatever the direction may be. So, I mean, in some ways it might feel like a failure, right? But I think it's important to take the learning from every situation. And I think, you know, the universe sort of works in its own way, and there's something to be learned from every experience. So again, I would say just, you know, don't be afraid to fail, because, you know, the fear will hold you back from learning and from just being able to, you know, really get to where you're supposed to be at some point. And just know that you know, the universe knows what it's doing. So.
Oh, okay, thank you. Maureen, did you want to add to that?
I absolutely agree. Sometimes the setbacks and the step backs can be the biggest blessing in your lives. So don't let them get you down.
And I would add that sometimes, you know, it may not be a step back, it may be a lateral. And if you're looking to make a change, you know, a career direction change, you don't go into the new job or the new position with the same background and experience. So there may be a learning curve to what you're now going to be doing. So you shouldn't necessarily think that you're going to go in at the same level. And you should be prepared for that. That doesn't mean you won't progress, but you just have to be, you know, realistic as to you may not have the skill set for the level that you wish to be at in that new line.
Oh, fantastic advice. The students really have a lot on their minds. So let's go to the next question here. This is from Margot. What advice would the panelists give to a student who is unsure about what they want to pursue? A lot of variety of interests, difficulty narrowing it down. Brianna, you seem to be jumping around a little bit from when you discussed, so maybe you want to share with us your thoughts?
Yeah, so you have to, there's an element of just trying something out in order to learn if that's something that you actually want to continue pursuing. If you are like me, you are probably very future oriented. And so in your mind, your life looks like this. At least that's what I thought when I graduated college, and pretty much since kindergarten. I've been like 82 since I've been in kindergarten. I was like, my life will look like this. And then you get out of college and you soon realize, maybe not. And you just have to be open-minded to the many ways that your life can manifest. Like, I remember watching the former president of Red Table Talk. Everyone always says life is short. In her interview, she said life is actually long. And she was referencing the fact that in her 20s, she did so many different things. And now in her 30s and beyond, she's doing whatever it is that she's doing. And that gave me a new perspective. And I say that all the time, like, you can have so many life journeys within your one lifetime. So don't be afraid to try something, especially in your 20s, and then change your mind later, and then change your mind again in your 30s and in your 40s. Like, I think we get caught up in the perception of what adulting is supposed to be, or what our life is supposed to be. But truthfully, if you talk to adults now at any age, they're going to tell you, oh yeah, I pivoted when I was 35. Oh yeah, I thought I was going to do this, but at 45, I changed my mind and now I'm doing this. So just put yourself out there and try. What's the worst that can happen?
Okay, anybody else?
I would, yeah.
Oh, sorry, okay, go ahead, Anne.
Okay, thank
and then
you.
We'll go to Harriet after.
I would echo what Brianna said as well. There's part of my story is, yes, I have a writing business, but the other piece of that is I work part-time in a law office because I wanted to get out of the house and I wanted to do something else. So even at my 40-something years old, I still have 2 different jobs, and I bring my marketing skills to the law office, and I bring some of that organization and learning and having good contracts over to my business. So don't be afraid. If you've got a lot of things going on, pick one and pursue that. Maybe volunteer doing something else. I think somebody mentioned taking your skills to a volunteer position. If you can do social media and website updates and things like that, I know there's nonprofits looking for that. They don't have the skills. Their skills are in fundraising typically, right? Things like that. So don't be afraid. I think I was one of those students who really had a lot of different interests, and you kind of just pick one and kind of see where it goes. Like Brianna said, like, you never know what's going to happen. I pivoted in my late 30s and here we are. So I think it's beautiful. This generation isn't spending 35 years in the same job. And frankly, I'm a little jealous. So I think it's a good thing for you, actually.
Okay, thank you. Harriet, did you want to add to that?
No, I would say, you know, don't be afraid to make a change. And again, you know, be open to opportunities. But I would also caution, because I'm a person who hires people. And I would caution that what you don't want to be doing is what would be perceived as being job hopping. Because if I get a resume and I see for the past 10 years, every 2 years they changed jobs, that tells me this is a person without a commitment. And if I'm going to invest the time on taking somebody on and paying them and expecting them to learn and grow in the position, I don't want to think, well, it's a 2-year gig and then they're going to leave to go explore something else. So I would just say be cautious as you do it, as you go through it.
Thank you. We don't have that much time, so I'm going to try and consolidate some of these questions sort of into one question and maybe ask our panelists also to try and consolidate their responses. It's sort of a combination of what helps you do your job, what kind of jobs, activities, classes, skills, certificates, graduate programs, advanced degrees, things of that nature that you felt benefited or helped you get to where you are now. Maureen, let's start with you. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble seeing and doing. I apologize.
No problem. What I would strongly recommend, and I tell all of the young people, take an accounting class. It's one of the best investments that you'll make. It opens up so many different career paths, and not to mention it will just help you in your personal life. Take an accounting class.
Okay, Brianna, do you have or Catherine or Harriet or Ann?
Sure. For me, like I said in my introduction, me putting myself out there and working a variety of different helped with what I do now. Now that I'm in the position that I'm in, I am constantly learning. So any sort of certificate that I can get from a reputable brand in my industry, I get. Any opportunity that I'm able to network, such as this, I do. So yeah, as an entrepreneur, you kind of have to find those things a little bit more so than the traditional job positions, but they are out there. So just do your research and go after them.
Okay, Catherine?
Yeah, I would say the same, but also read and write a lot. So I feel like reading is so important, and it sounds silly, like, you know, reading is fundamental, but it really is. Reading anything, really. You could pick a topic and you're going to learn something from it. Staying up to date and sort of, you know, the research in the field, whatever field you want to work in, and sort of being able to dissect fact, and being able to learn the important points of whatever it is you're reading, a journal, newspaper article, whatever it is. If you can do certifications, if you can pursue, you know, courses and additional, you know, graduate degree, whatever it is, I would say do it. If you're in the position to do it, do it. You know, I worked full time through a lot of my master's and my undergrad, and it wasn't easy, but it was so rewarding in the end. So if you can do it, you know, do it.
Okay, thank you. We have one more question. I think for any of our panelists, what difficulties do you find as a woman in a male-forward profession, And are you ever not taken seriously, or do you ever find prejudice because you're a woman that you have to overcome? So let's start with Harriet.
Let me take that one. When I went to law school, it was 10% women. That was it. And, you know, so if you think of that time compared to now, it's, you know, pretty much half or a bit over half of the law school population is female. So when I was in law school, it was a challenge. I mean, it was, you know, you had to have elbows out, but you have to, as a woman, you have to be somewhat careful as to your approach, because a man can be viewed as, you know, a go-getter. A woman is just being aggressive. So it's important to read your audience and try to be true to your own style, but be open and willing to read the room, you know, and I think that's important because you need to be polite, you need to show courtesy, but you will have challenges. I mean, as a, you know, certainly as a female or as a minority, I mean, you're going to face challenges, but what you have to do is just sort of figure out the way you plot your path. And, you know, as I said, 10% women. I came out of law school. You know, I had my doctorate. I go to get a job. It's mostly men. But again, it's one of those things you just have to, you may have to work harder. You just need to be prepared for that. Don't take it personally, because otherwise you'll come forward with an attitude that you don't really mean, but it will be perceived. And that's not going to help you. But I think if you act in a professional manner, and as you show your worth, your capabilities, you know, I'm a general counsel of a New York Stock Exchange listed financial institution, you know, and I see Ann with the muscle up, but it kind of plays out. And so just remember the contacts that you make along the way. You don't want them to come back to haunt you because their experience with you was distasteful.
Thank you. Maureen?
When I started in commercial banking, you didn't need more than one hand to count how many women were in the field in the state. So I encountered a fair degree of that difficulty being the woman in the room. And the strategy I always used was make my boss's job easier, take things off of his plate. And it was the way I always got to, you know, stand out and be on the top of his mind when those promotions came along. And the other thing I would say is, when you've earned that seat at the table, take that seat at the table. Don't be getting up to get coffee or water for anybody. When you get that promotion, you've earned that chair. Sit in it.
Thank you. Ann?
I don't know that I have anything to add. You're just amazing women. I think I never saw that there was a glass ceiling. I think I counted, I'm fourth generation working woman in my family. I knew there was a glass ceiling, but I ignored it. And I just went out on my own. What's interesting is sometimes my preferred clients are men. They seem to be clear with their messaging sometimes. I don't know what the difference is, but I feel like I can hold my own. And I think that probably in large part came from being from a long line of strong women who did take their seat at the table. Maureen, I just love that you said it that way. Yes, take your seat, ladies. Please take your seat. And I think now there's even more opportunity for you to do that than there was for us earlier. Harriet, you're just amazing. I just love hearing your story. And yeah, ladies, just go out and kill it. There's amazing opportunities for you that maybe there weren't for us, and you're grabbing them. I can see it in the young ladies that I know. So yes, go get that seat.
Thank you. Okay. Wow. Catherine?
Yeah, I mean, I think the same that Anne said. I sort of just kind of ignored it. I also went into a mostly female field, right? Like social work, human services. but definitely had encounters with men who were not sort of open and, willing to sort of share their space with a young girl that didn't know what she was doing. So, but I was like the first to graduate college in my family. I was the first to get a graduate degree. So I feel like I did a lot of firsts, and I never really thought, I couldn't do something because of someone else. I was sort of like, no, I'm just gonna do this thing. And so I just encourage you to like empower yourself to do it, and don't worry about what other people are doing or thinking of you or making you feel, because it's all about you and sort of like, what you tell yourself, your dialogue to yourself should be like, screw it, I can do it,
And Brianna?
Yes, I'll try to keep this short. Being in entertainment, definitely male dominated. There's no getting around that whatsoever. And especially when my hair is curly like this, I definitely look 12. So I get the men who think I'm super young, and so they try to manipulate me in that way. I get men who want to work with me, but they come across like they want to date me instead. I get men that don't take me seriously because of how young I am, but also just because I'm a Black woman. We can't ignore that that is a thing, right? So with that, I will echo what the lady said, and that is just to set the precedent for how you want to be perceived. And someone asked in here, like, what are some transferable skills that are helpful to you? Being a people person, like learning how to communicate with people, and to Harriet's point, reading the room. I'm very personal, very bubbly, but sometimes I need to dial that back a little bit. And that doesn't mean that I'm compromising my personality when I'm engaging with people that I get the vibe that they will overstep their boundaries a bit. But there's a certain way that you communicate that expresses, look, I'm friendly and I'm willing to work with you, but you need to take me seriously. And to the point about, grasping the seat at the table, as a woman of color, we know, and for those that are listening in, we know that sometimes we aren't often given that seat, right? Or we have to fight extra hard to get that seat. So yeah, if the seat is given to you, take it and then grab someone else, regardless of how they look, and bring them up. But don't be afraid, and I know that I've said this throughout this conversation, don't be afraid to create your own table too.
Okay, great. Thank you. I just want to mention about bringing a seat to the table. Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm, who was also a woman of color and Congresswoman from Brooklyn, who also ran for president, said, if they don't give you the seat at the table, bring your own. And that's just something I've always held in the back of my head. Unfortunately, sadly, I think we could be continuing this conversation all day. It's just been fantastic. We're out of time. I want to thank the panelists for taking time out of their schedules to join us and share their experiences with our students. I want to thank our students for turning in. We had over about 75 to 80 students turn in, which is wonderful. I want to thank the Center for Career Development, the UConn Foundation, the Honors Program, my co-host, Professor Smirnova. And I want to just remind everyone that we're all breaking barriers. And even though this was billed as a women in the social sciences, I know our male students also appreciated hearing the advice. And I think that there's renewed hope for the future. And I think you all shared with us that hope. And I think our students will benefit from learning from you. So I want to thank everybody for participating. Have a wonderful day, stay safe, and hopefully we can do this again in the future in person. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
You.